Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Today is July 4th, and in the United States, it's what we call Independence Day. It's a day that represents our freedom as a country, and also it represents the freedoms that we have as individuals. So I would be remiss to not talk about freedom today. It seems only appropriate on this day to talk about it. So first and foremost, freedom, as I understand it, is the ability to act, speak, and think without retribution or any negative consequences. We have freedoms afforded us in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. So those play out on a daily basis with our ability to express our opinions, to act in certain ways that are lawful, and then also to speak. So it's important to understand how these play out when you're in a leadership role, because they do have an impact on others when you're a leader. Let's face it, most leaders are paid, their companies invest in them because they have the ability to freely express their thoughts, their actions, and their intentions for the company to be successful. So with that in mind, there's a few things that I want to talk about in terms of how leaders impact culture in relationship to freedom. So first and foremost, leaders do have a responsibility for making sure that the culture is an open, accepting, free culture, again, within the policies and guidelines of the company. What's interesting for me around it is that I throughout my entire career, made it a top priority to empower others to do work beyond their scope, which allowed them to be trained, educated, and try out new things. That empowerment gave them the freedom to express a new job. That freedom in the empowerment gave them an opportunity to see if they wanted to be a leader or a project manager or some other role. In addition to that, it's always critical for organizations to give individuals the freedom to be creative and innovative. That's how problems get solved. That's how customer service goes up. That's how businesses gain more followers, more customers. And then third and foremost, it's really important to have the freedom to manage your own career. So it's very important to be able to move within a company, and it's also important to be able to move from one company to another. And that's all allowed because we have the freedom to choose the employment that we have. So as is the case each day, I want to just share with you that when I was in China one time, and I promise I'll talk about other countries at some point, when I was in China at one point, I came out of a business meeting and I noticed that there were a lot of workers that were all huddled together, and they had suitcase, well, not suitcases so much as like bags and personal belongings and that kind of stuff. And there were probably about 15 or 20 of them there. And I asked the woman that I was working with, what's going on here? What's happening? And she said, these are the workers that are being sent home. And I said, as I do, asking questions, why are these workers being sent home? And she said they failed to meet their production requirements, they failed to meet their quality requirements, and they were displaying they were not meeting their hygiene, if that makes sense. In some factories, it's required that you have certain hygiene levels, and they weren't meeting these three things. So the employer decided that their employment was ended. They no longer had the freedom to work in that factory, and they were being sent back to their villages, where they wouldn't have an opportunity for employment or an opportunity to make money. So my point in sharing that is that we experience freedom, and we have the ability to work wherever we want. And as leaders, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're treating the people that we work with the highest regard and dignity. So if you're interested in learning more about some of the resources that I can bring to bear when it comes to coaching and mentoring, I would love to hear from you. I have just a plethora of experiences over my 35-year corporate career, and I'd love to share them with you. My name is Phil Bolander. My company name is Seed and Lead, and you can contact me at phil@seedandlead.com, and we can set up an initial discovery call, see if we might be able to work together. With much gratitude.